My sister didn't invite me to the wedding, so I went on vacation, but when I got a call from the wedding I was surprised. I stood at the edge of the airport terminal, suitcase in hand, watching planes ascend into the sky. The hum of engines and the chatter of travelers filled the air, but my mind was elsewhere. Just days ago, I had received the news that my sister, Clara, was getting married. What should have been a moment of joy quickly turned into a source of pain. Clara and I had always shared a close bond. Growing up, we were inseparable, navigating the challenges of adolescence together. I had been there for her through every heartbreak, every setback, offering a shoulder to lean on. So, when I found out about her wedding through a distant relative's social media post, I was stunned. I reached out to our mother, hoping there had been a mistake. "Mom, I just saw that Clara's getting married. Why didn't I know about this?" There was a pause on the line before she responded, "Oh, honey, it's been a whirlwind. Clara wanted a small ceremony, just close friends and immediate family." "I'm her brother," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "How am I not considered immediate family?" She sighed, "It's not personal. They had to make some tough decisions." Tough decisions. The words echoed in my mind as I boarded the plane. If being excluded from my sister's wedding was a tough decision, then taking a vacation during it was mine. I needed space, a chance to process the hurt and confusion. As the plane soared above the clouds, I looked out the window, hoping that distance would bring clarity. But deep down, I knew that some wounds couldn't be healed by miles alone. The sun had barely risen over the coast when I arrived at the resort. A quiet, secluded place nestled between dense palms and an endless stretch of shoreline. It wasn't the sort of trip I would have normally taken, but this wasn't a normal week. I hadn't told anyone where I was going. I hadn't answered any more messages after the initial flood that followed the announcement. I needed to disappear for a while, not to hide, but to breathe. I checked into the hotel under my full name, Grant Ellison, but even then, part of me half expected to be recognized or pulled back into the family drama. Instead, I was handed a cool towel, a welcome drink, and a room key to a suite overlooking the ocean. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, I felt calm. As I settled into the room, I let my phone vibrate itself into silence on the dresser. It had already buzzed a dozen times during the car ride from the airport. I didn't need to check it to know who was reaching out: my cousin Howard, my Aunt Gloria, and of course, Clara. My sister, who had somehow planned a wedding without so much as mentioning it to me. Not a conversation. Not a text. Nothing. It wasn't about the event itself. It wasn't about a dinner I missed or a lack of communication. It was about what the silence meant. My sister hadn't forgotten me. She had chosen to exclude me. I walked out onto the balcony and stared at the ocean. The horizon was blurred by a layer of morning mist, and the sound of waves was soothing in a way I hadn't felt since childhood. I remembered taking trips like this with my family before everything got complicated, before schedules, grudges, and expectations twisted our closeness into something more conditional. Back then, Clara used to ask me for advice on everything, from school projects to how to talk to our father when she needed something important. I was the fixer. The middle sibling who kept peace. And now, I was expendable. At some point during the afternoon, I gave in and checked my phone. The most recent message was from Clara. "Hey Grant, I just wanted to let you know we finalized the guest list and had to make some tough calls. I hope you understand. Love you." There it was again. Tough calls. The words were so carefully selected, so sanitized of real emotion, that it almost felt rehearsed. I read the message 3 times before locking my screen again. My heart didn't race. My stomach didn't twist. I just felt tired. I didn't respond. Later that evening, I sat by the pool with a small notebook. I used to journal often, but I hadn't done it in years. That night, I wrote not about the exclusion, but about how easy it had become for my family to assume I would always be there. That I would forgive before they even apologized. That I would fix things just by showing up. But I wasn't going to show up this time. And for once, they would have to live with that. The next morning, I posted a photo from my balcony: coffee, ocean, sky, captioned simply, "Sometimes peace looks like absence." It didn't take long for the responses to start rolling in. A few cousins sent thumbs up or heart reactions. One of my college friends messaged me, saying, "Wow. Didn't expect you to dip during a family wedding." That made me pause. Dip? That wasn't what I was doing. I hadn't fled to avoid responsibility. I had left because they never gave me one in the first place. I had always been present. Quietly, consistently. But apparently, that kind of presence was easy to ignore, until it was gone. Around lunchtime, I received a message from my mother. It was longer than usual. "Grant, I wish you told me you were leaving town. Clara is really upset, and we didn't want you to feel left out. We just thought you wouldn't mind not coming. It's not personal. These things are expensive. Please don't be angry. It's just one day." I didn't respond. Not yet. Because that sentence kept echoing in my head, "We thought you wouldn't mind." They hadn't checked. Hadn't asked. Just assumed that I'd understand. That I'd adjust. That I'd accept it, like I always did. But not this time. I picked up my journal and wrote a single line beneath last night's entry. Understanding shouldn't be confused with silence. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon that evening, casting gold and violet across the waves, I decided I wasn't going home early. I hadn't come here for attention or to make a statement. I came because I needed to be somewhere I mattered, even if I was the only one who believed it. On the morning Clara was supposed to walk down the aisle, I was already in the middle of a yoga class on the resort's sun deck. It was a quiet, deliberate practice, framed by the ocean breeze and the rustling of palm trees. No one there knew my name. No one knew that across the country, a family was gathering for a wedding I wasn't invited to. And that anonymity was strangely comforting. After the session, I returned to my room, poured myself a glass of pineapple juice, and stepped onto the balcony. The view hadn't changed, but I had. I was lighter. Not over it, not healed, but detached in a way that gave me space to think. Then my phone began vibrating. Again. I let it go the first time. Then the second. By the third call, I glanced at the screen and saw the name, Howard, my cousin. Then another call. Then a text from Uncle Jerry. And then Clara. I sat down, unsure whether I was annoyed or just curious. Then the messages started appearing faster than I could keep up. "Howard, you won't believe this. I know you're off the grid, but dude, something happened. Uncle Jerry, Grant. You need to call your mother. It's urgent. Clara, please, please answer. I need you." Something had clearly gone wrong. At first, I assumed it was logistical, maybe the florist didn't show, maybe it rained. But then the real message arrived, from Melissa, a second cousin I was never close to but always found sensible. Melissa, the groom left. During the reception. Just walked out. My jaw tensed. I replied. Me, walked out? Like left for a breather or? Melissa, no. He's gone. He and Clara had some huge argument before the dinner. Then he told his best man he couldn't do this, got in his car, and left. I leaned back in the chair, blinking at the screen. The waves crashed steadily below. My drink was sweating in the glass, untouched. More texts rolled in. "Mom, call me. I know you're upset, but this is bigger than all of that now. Clara, I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm sorry. I need you. Please." This time, the ache hit differently. Not because I was being begged to come back. But because I realized, in that moment, what they had always expected of me. To fix things. Again. Always. Growing up, Clara was emotional and impulsive. And I was the steady one. I'd calmed her down after fights with our parents. I'd stayed up late helping her through college decisions and stayed on the phone with her the night she lost her first job. She used to say I had anchor energy, and she leaned on it more than she admitted. But when it came time to build her life, to plan the biggest moment of it, she left me out. Silently. Entirely. And now, because it had unraveled, I was needed again. I stared at my screen, the latest message from Clara still open. "I need you." I typed back. Me, I was invisible when it mattered. "Now that it's falling apart, you remember me?" I paused, read it twice, and then deleted it. It didn't feel worth sending. Instead, I opened my camera, took a photo of the view from my balcony, the endless stretch of blue, the calm, the quiet, and sent that instead, without a caption. That was all I needed to say. Later that evening, Melissa called me directly. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Her voice was breathless, like she'd just run up a flight of stairs. "Grant," she said. "I had to call. Everything's gone completely sideways." I let her talk. She needed it. And honestly, I wanted the details now that I was too far removed to be drawn back in. She told me how the groom's parents had been cordial but unmoved, saying this was something Clara would have to deal with herself. That our uncle had started blaming my mother for raising an entitled child, which had erupted into a shouting match in front of guests. Grandma apparently cried. Someone slipped on spilled champagne. It sounded more like a stage play than a ceremony. And somewhere in the middle of it all, someone, Aunt Joanne, I think, said aloud that, maybe if Grant had been there, this wouldn't have happened. Melissa laughed a little nervously as she said it. "I don't agree with her," she added quickly. "But I think you should know, your absence is all anyone's talking about now." That struck me more deeply than I expected. It wasn't the validation I wanted. It wasn't even about fairness. It was just the absurdity of it all. I had been left out, and now I was being blamed for not being there to prevent the fallout. "It's a bit ironic, isn't it?" I said quietly. Melissa sighed. "You did the right thing, Grant. Honestly. This whole thing. Clara made her choice. You don't owe anyone anything." We talked for a while longer, mostly about neutral things. She told me she was leaving early, that she didn't want to be around for the aftermath. I couldn't blame her. When we hung up, I stood out on the balcony for a long time. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel bitter. I just felt done. Not in the way people say when they're angry. But in the way you feel when you finally set something down that's been too heavy for too long. That night, I had dinner alone by the beach. A candle flickered beside a plate of seared fish and roasted vegetables. The air smelled like sea salt and lime. And somewhere, hundreds of miles away, my sister sat in a wedding dress without a groom, surrounded by broken glass and unfinished conversations. And I just watched the waves. The next morning, I woke up without an alarm. No phone buzzing beside me, no obligations pressing at the edges of my thoughts. Just the soft lull of the ocean waves and the gentle rustle of tropical trees swaying in the breeze. For a moment, I forgot what day it was. Then I remembered, it was the day after the wedding. Or rather, the day after what would have been a wedding. I reached for my phone, not because I was ready to engage, but out of habit. Despite the "Do Not Disturb" setting, several voicemails had slipped through from unknown numbers. I sat at the edge of the bed and listened. First voicemail, Mom. "Grant, I really don't understand what you're doing. Your sister is devastated, and you're acting like this is a game. This family needs to come together right now, not fall apart." Second voicemail, Clara. Her voice was shaking. "I know I hurt you. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. But you're making things worse. Please, just call me back. Please." Third voicemail, Aunt Gloria, maybe. "You two need to fix this. Your siblings. Life is too short for these standoffs." I didn't respond to any of them. I deleted each one after listening. Because as painful as it was to hear my sister's voice trembling, after all this, I couldn't go back. I stepped out onto the balcony and let the wind push through my hair. Below me, the beach was nearly empty, save for an early couple strolling barefoot near the shoreline. The world kept turning. It struck me that, for the first time in my adult life, I was holding a boundary without apology. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't a tantrum. It was a decision. A decision not to be the easy one anymore. Not to be the fixer. Not to be the person who is only invited when convenient, only appreciated when everything else falls apart. I took a picture of my breakfast, an omelette, fresh-cut melon, and a glass of grapefruit juice, all set against the morning sun, and posted it with one line. Peace isn't earned through apologies. It's protected by presence. Minutes later, I got a message from Melissa. "Melissa, so, family's in full damage control mode. Your mom wants to do a family reset dinner when you're back. Just thought you should know." I almost laughed. Back? They still thought this trip had a return ticket. I texted her. "Me, thanks for the heads up. But I'm not going." Melissa, "Wait, not going to the dinner?" Me, "Not going back. I extended my trip." There was a pause, and then a bubble appeared. It lingered for a long moment before the message came through. Melissa, okay, now that's iconic. Please write a book one day. Call me when you feel like talking again. I smiled for the first time that day. The decision to extend the trip wasn't spontaneous. I had already been toying with the idea. But now, it felt necessary. Not out of spite, but self-preservation. This place had become more than an escape. It was a boundary in physical form. I opened my laptop, logged into the booking app, and added 7 more nights. Oceanfront. Same suite. No noise. No fixes. No family dinners filled with careful wording and half-hearted reconciliation attempts. That afternoon, I scheduled a sunset sail along the bay. The boat was small, just 6 guests, and the captain greeted us like old friends. I stood at the bow as the boat cut across the water, watching the sky turn pink and orange. The breeze wrapped around me, warm and alive. Somewhere, far away, my mother was probably still trying to make sense of the weekend. Clara might have been taking down the decorations, or sitting quietly in her apartment, wondering where it all went wrong. And I wasn't there to solve it. I wasn't going to be. Before the sun fully dipped below the horizon, I pulled out my phone one last time. I composed a message, not to Melissa, not to anyone in particular, but to those who needed to hear it, even if they never would. Me send Mom and Clara. You only needed me when things fell apart. Not when it mattered. That's not family. That's convenience. I hope you both take the time to think about what that means. In the meantime, I'll be doing something I haven't done in years, living without guilt. Then I blocked both numbers. Again. Not out of cruelty, but out of quiet resolution. I ordered a drink from the small bar on the boat and watched the sun disappear into the horizon. The captain played a bit of soft jazz over the speakers, and the ocean reflected every shade of fire and dusk. No one needed anything from me here. No one expected me to fix something broken. I could just be. And that, I realized, was the real luxury. Not the suite, not the view, not even the freedom. But the permission I finally gave myself, to walk away from being the person others only valued when it was too late. Thank you all for watching the video, and see you soon.